I'm Stephen Frech. I'm Associate Professor of English and Chair of the English Department here at Millikin University.
My name is Kim. I'm a pianist and I currently teach at the School of Music here at Millikin University.
The recording A Palace of Strangers is No City started as a publication of mine in 2011 by the same title. It's a sequence of prose poetry and flash fiction that maintains a sustained narrative, tells a story of two lovers on opposite sides of an occupied city. The cityscape in the sequence is loosely modeled in my imagination on the city of Prague, where I had traveled and Jong and I had traveled.
It all started with a trip to the Czech Republic. We took a group of students to Europe. It was an immersion trip, and during that trip we went into a music store.
One of the recordings that we located while we were there was a CD by the Czech composer Leoš Janáček, and it's that music that we recorded to accompany the sequence. There are lines in the sequence that come from Czech opera, and so it seemed quite natural to think about some collaboration with music, some accompanying music that might bring out some of the emotional tones and colors of the story.
One of the pieces that was on the CD was An Overgrown Path by Leoš Janáček. It's a very beautiful set of 15 pieces that were composed right at the beginning of the 20th century. And the first 10 pieces in the set all have titles, so they're programmatic. They depict a certain mood, a certain event, a certain emotion.
One of the benefits for me in working on the project and the combination of the poetry and the music was it highlighted for me a lot of the emotional reverberations of the sequence. And it's not as if I had been unfamiliar with those. I authored it. But in so many ways, the music brings to life in unspoken ways what the sequence is trying very hard in language to say, what the characters are trying to say for each other.
The reason why these pieces are not very often performed is that they're rather intimate. They're mostly on the quiet side, and the harmonies in these pieces are just beautiful. So I was delighted when I rediscovered these pieces, and I was happy when Stephen decided to use some of these pieces to augment his poems in A Palace of Strangers.
When Jong and I conceived of the project, we were trying to find a happy arrangement that allowed the music to be as much of a feature of the recording as the story was. And the intent all along for me was to try to find a narrative arc which exists in the story as a story. But in introducing music now, the story doesn't stand alone, and so I wanted the music to tell part of that story too, and I wanted the existing sequence of poems to somehow accompany and help tell the story of the music as well.
You and the big man say goodbye and wish each other luck. You feel the world narrowing, but objects come into greater focus as in a telescope. What will you do now? He asks. You must escape. You know it. You will go to her and live in hiding. That very morning, before dawn, you both whispered in bed, "Wouldn't it be lovely? Won't our lives be wonderful when?" As if you could tease out the fantasy from life, as if life weren't having its own strange dream about two lovers who, for lack of money or documentation, live on opposite sides of a city in an occupied country, separated by walls and checkpoints. But you have done nothing, the big man says, not because he knows you, but out of habit and sympathy. Don't say anything, he pleads, or I'll know something. Don't tell me how beautiful she is. Let me imagine